In standard Western history books, 16th century global conquest is written as a one-sided European triumph, where heavy armor and Iberian gunpowder effortlessly crushed all non-European opposition. But in August 1578, deep in the North African interior, that narrative was violently dismantled. On the banks of the Lucos River, a modernizing African superpower executed one of the most brilliant strategic traps in military history, annihilating an entire European army and dragging a global empire to its knees. This video accompanies Chapter 8 of Sand, Clay, and Iron, Africa's journey from the Stone Age to the dawn of European colonization. If you'd like to follow along, pick up your copy at the link below. Imagine wearing 60 pounds of steel armor under a blinding North African sun. In August 1578, a massive Portuguese army is marching through the Moroccan desert, their water supplies draining as temperatures soar well over 100 degrees. This winding stretch of the Lucos River is the center of the Moroccan strategy. The geography seems quiet today, but 4 centuries ago, these shallows offered zero cover for an exhausted invading force. The young Portuguese king leading this expedition believes he is the apex predator hunting a retreating enemy. In reality, he is leading his elite troops into a meticulously engineered kill zone. By sunset, this riverbank will be littered with the wreckage of an empire, marking a collapse from which Portugal will never fully recover. King Sebastian was obsessed with the romanticized vision of the past. He pressured his young nobles to serve in North Africa, attempting to revive a medieval style of crusade that the rest of the world had already moved past. He assembled an unwieldy armada of 15,000 men, dragging along heavy baggage trains, thousands of non-combatants, and a rigid chivalric code completely unsuited for the North African interior. To understand how Morocco broke Portugal, we must look beyond the textbook myths and examine a secret economic weapon forged in the fertile valleys of the Maghreb. Between 1450 and 1520, Portuguese captains in coastal enclaves like Safi and Azemmour exacted ruthless tribute, demanding over 16,000 camel loads of wheat and barley annually from local tribes, provoking devastating regional famines. Yet out of this economic devastation rose the Saadian dynasty, who realized that traditional cavalry warfare could never defeat Iberian expansion. They embarked on an aggressive military modernization project, systematically converting raw sugar production from the Sousse Valley into foreign exchange capital to purchase state-of-the-art matchlock firearms from English and Dutch traders. To comprehend the scale of this trap, we must examine the human mechanics of the Moroccan state through the life of an administrative officer operating in the Sousse Valley. This map shows the Portuguese strategy. They relied on coastal domination, planting flags and fortresses to control trade. But by staring exclusively at the Atlantic, they ignored the threat right behind them. Inland, the Saadians were undergoing a massive military consolidation unnoticed in Lisbon. Sebastian was prepared to fight the wars of the past, leaving his vast empire uniquely vulnerable to an opponent that had spent years quietly modernizing. That opponent was the rising Saadian dynasty. They were a highly organized Moroccan state that prioritized technological acquisition over traditional regional warfare. They funded their expansion through a masterstroke of economic engineering. Around 1540, the men responsible for managing state-run sugar latifundia around Taroudant and Tiout oversaw hundreds of wage laborers and specialized European technicians. They directed 15 massive stone irrigation canals diverting over 2,000 liters of water per second to power industrial grinding mills and nourish thousands of acres of sugarcane, but had to navigate unpredictable bimodal rain cycles and severe regional droughts, strictly rationing food reserves while verifying high-volume international imports. English merchants bypassed Portuguese blockades, exchanging European iron, tin, and matchlock match cord directly for Moroccan copper and refined sugar. The massive revenues generated under his supervision-funded state-run foundries, local bronze cannon casting, and the creation of a permanent standing army equipped with European standard firearms. Morocco was not just buying guns. They were building an ecosystem of military innovation. They hired European renegades and Ottoman experts and engineered light, mobile artillery designed specifically for desert combat. While European armies relied on heavy, immobile formations, the Saadians built a force that combined mobility with overwhelming firepower. While Lisbon remained blind to interior developments, Sultan Abd al-Malik was constructing an ecosystem of military innovation that redefined 16th century tactics. The Saadians established state-backed arms foundries, hired European renegades, and brought in Ottoman artillery masters to engineer light, mobile field cannons optimized for high-speed desert maneuvering. While European military doctrine relied heavily on slow, rigid pike and shot squares, Morocco developed the elite Jaysh al-Asbahiyya, a specialized corps of mounted arquebusiers trained to deliver devastating high-tempo hit-and-run salvos from horseback while maintaining constant tactical movement. When Sebastian marched inland, he wasn't just fighting a country, he was marching into a trap designed by a nation that had mastered the art of asymmetric warfare. Sultan Abd al-Malik knew that victory wasn't about fighting harder. It was about forcing the enemy to fight on your terms. He deliberately allowed the Portuguese army to advance deeper into the interior, letting the heat, hunger, and exhaustion do the initial damage. By the time the two armies met at Ksar el-Kebir, the Portuguese were already broken. The battle itself was a masterclass in tactical execution. The Moroccan forces positioned themselves with the Lucos River at their back and marshy terrain surrounding the battlefield, effectively cutting off any potential retreat. When King Sebastian's army crossed the Lucos River, Abd al-Malik executed his grand tactical design. The Moroccan forces deployed in an expansive crescent formation, using marshy terrain and the river's bend to lock the Portuguese inside a tight pocket, with no avenue for retreat. The Jaysh al-Asbahiyya encircled the invading army, pouring relentless volley fire into the tightly packed Portuguese ranks. Midday heat and severe dehydration shattered Iberian cohesion, rendering their 60-pound steel armor a deadly handicap. Yet an unexpected historical crisis struck at the peak of combat. Sultan Abd al-Malik, severely ill, died inside his royal command litter. In a display of disciplined military command, his generals swore secrecy, kept the litter curtains sealed, and issued continuous tactical orders in the deceased sultan's name, maintaining total unit morale until final victory was achieved. The Asbahiyya systematically dismantled the Portuguese defenses, using their superior mobility to maintain a relentless concentrated fire that the armored pikemen couldn't stop. This engraving captures the final collapse. King Sebastian was killed in the melee, leaving the Portuguese Empire without a leader and with its entire military nobility either dead or captured. The fallout was total. Within 2 years, a leaderless Portugal was absorbed by the Spanish Habsburgs. Morocco forced the Iberian crown into bankruptcy, triggering the 1580 annexation of Portugal by Philip II of Spain, ending its era as an independent global power. The ultimate historical significance of Ksar el-Kebir extends far beyond a single military triumph. By utterly destroying the Portuguese royal army, millions of gold ducats paid in ransom for captured European aristocrats flooded the Saadian treasury. The immense wealth generated by ransoming captured European nobles funded a new era for Morocco, funding a golden age of architectural and cultural splendor across Marrakesh and Fez. You can still see the scale of that victory in the ornate columns and tilework of the Saadian tombs. More crucially, the battle shattered the myth of European invincibility in Africa and proved that an African sovereign state, through fiscal discipline, industrial organization, and military adaptation, could defeat a first-rank European global empire on its own terms. Ksar el-Kebir stands as objective proof of Saadian military engineering, a moment where an African power successfully outthought and outgunned a global empire on its own terms. History belongs to those who adapt and innovate. Recognizing these moments of strategic genius reveals a map of global power far more complex than traditional narratives often suggest.